what agility is all about. I guess I was in Microsoft at that time, and that person came, the Scrum Master, and start saying like, just go and start implementing this, that, and no mistakes were allowed. So whatever we did, even if we do a small mistake, we were kind of reprimanded. No, this is the purity of the framework, and you cannot destroy it, and you have to follow each and everything. Uh, the net result was, interestingly, we failed.
Yeah.
We failed means we were not able to go and deliver anything. So that's the time it came to my mind as like we were doing everything to the book, according to a trained Scrum Master who told us how to do things and why did we fail. And then gradually I started experimenting with a small team, and that team gave me a confidence, just forget everything and let's do it.
Hmm.
And so I tried to decipher between those two, like what was the difference? Like at one time we were implementing the framework in all its purity, and the second time a team just took like, hey, we are going to go and do it. They took some topics, they took some requirements, some stories, and they tried to implement it, and they were super successful. They produced like 3 4 times than the rest of the team. So I started analyzing that difference, and then I started learning, and that was my big beginning of the learning of the agility, I would say.
Hmm.
And since then, the entire experience, my entire experience in agility has been learning and experimenting and learning each and everything one at a time, by experimenting and seeing whether it works, it doesn't work. And to my surprise, what I have seen, a lot of things that you will see like, okay, this kind of company is too kind of old, too traditional, it's not going to work. It works like magic there. And a lot of things that you will think is like, you go to big and techie companies like Microsoft, is going to go and work easily, it doesn't work there,
Yeah.
So the thing that you have to understand is like, then what is that coaching all about, what works? So, uh, so the first principle that I developed in when experimenting with a lot of companies is, do not be a framework implementer. A lot of coaches just go and implement a framework, like this is a Scrum, this is Safe or Kanban or any other kind of a framework. So I compare that as like a framework is like a canvas
Yeah.
where you do the painting, right?
Hmm.
Framework itself is not a painting. And the
Absolutely.
painting that you do there, that's the beauty, that's your agility. So
Hmm.
how do you go and paint on a framework? That basically defines that how you do agile, how you make your organization agile. So in short, you go to a corporation, you go to a company to solve their problems. You do not go there just to implement a framework and say like, hey, these are the practices, you go and implement. So implementing practices are good, I'm not against it,
Hmm.
but the reality is, if you want to become a coach, the first and the most important thing you have to do is to understand the problem. So now you're going to ask me like, how are you going to go and understand the problem? There are 10,000 problems, right?
But
So
before that, actually, before we get into the like how to understand the problem, I think I was just really interested to understand the path actually, because people come with different journeys, and one of the things which I've seen is that somebody wants to become a coach, so he goes with a 2 days of workshop, and then somehow it looks like after 2 days one has become coach. So is it even though that there may be certain nuances which may be focused towards the way you interact with the customers, and how you uh, do you listen or don't you listen, and all that softer aspects. But I was just thinking like, is that sufficient, or do you need more even before you start solving the problems?
absolutely, absolutely. So recently I was reading a blog post, and that was from Sutherland, and where he's talking about like, if you're in the game, you need to know the game, right? For example,
Absolutely.
if you want to become uh, a soccer coach, then you need to understand what soccer is. And that's a very important point. If you want to really make a change in the software development world, then it's very important that you understand the how software development works. If you
Absolutely.
really understand. So a lot of people misinterpret that as you being a good coder in a language. I won't agree with that, because that's a very, very myopic view of looking into things. Is like you have to be just a coder in one language that you can learn any day. Like take Python, you can probably learn in 6 months. It's not about a language. That's a very small piece. If you know, that's good. It's about understanding the whole enchilada of software development.
Yeah.
Like how one line, one requirement, or one story goes into production. You need to understand the landscape very well. If you understand very well, like how a story is written, what is the meaning of a story, why it was written, how that is going to be handed off to a development team, what it means to hand off, or I won't like the word hand off because that's very traditional, how to interact with the development team, then how you interact with your testing team or with your customer, and what kind of interaction, what is the nature of interaction. If you understand the software development and then you overlay all these interactions on top of that, then you really understand the whole gamut of the software development. So before you go into coaching, it's super important that understand the how software development works.
Absolutely.
well well, you can say like it's a huge world and you cannot know everything, but at least you need to be very good at some of the things, right? That
Yeah.
at least how you transition from one place to another. So if you understand the whole landscape plus you're good at some of the things, then you can be a successful coach. So
Yeah.
it's very important that you understand the game that you're in. Yeah.
Yes, actually, that's where my confusions or kind of interactions have been there in different forums. And my understanding is that it is very, very important to understand the domain you want to coach. Actually, whether it's software development or anything else, we need to really understand, and at the same time understand these nuances, like how, I mean, for example, somebody wants to go and start solving the problem, for example, uh, he need to have different understanding of how, I mean, how people have done similar kind of situation, how they handle it, or a worldview about those problems actually, before he says that okay, this may be a right way to do and this may not be a right way to do. So apart from understanding the software gamut, uh, what about understanding whatever is going on in around the world? What
Correct.
do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another great point, Shrikant. So understanding software development is one key part. The second important part is being situationally aware. You really need to know like what kind of domain you're in, uh, what is going around in the world in the technology, what is going around in your company, what is going around, because a lot of people think it's pretty static relationship. You are a great coach, just go to a company and because you're great, people are going to listen and it's going to be successful. Most likely it's not going to happen. And you will say like, hey, I was saying so many great things. These guys are not changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, so it's a very common refrain from all the coaches. They go to a domain, they go to a company, and they think like the things, they will say great things, and people are going to go and they'll ask super tough questions, and people will respond to that, and things will change. No, it never happens like that. The reason it doesn't happen is like every company has its own personality, every company has its own culture. If you want to go to a new culture and you want to change it, first you have to go and assimilate it to some extent in that culture, in the sense like you have to understand that culture and you have to understand the nuances. Then you will have to figure it out. So that's where I use the four keywords which I use always to find out like how you're going to go and find out like what is that we need to go and make changes. And I summarize those, and there could be more, but I summarize those in basically four words. First is customer centricity. So when you go to an organization, go and look at the things whether is it really a customer centric organization or is it something which is very much output oriented, means the entire company is in just in the business of delivering software, and they care least about customer.
Yeah.
Why? We'll discuss later why it's so important. But you have to look at it. You have to look into that from your customer angle. If that company is least customer centric, you can have wonderful practices, but it's very difficult to call that company agile. And again, it could be ingrained in their culture. So when you go as a coach, you have to observe and you have to try your best that how you can shift the focus from being non-customer centric, output oriented company to an outcome oriented company, which is very much customer centric. So that's the first thing that you have to look for. The second thing that you have to look for is how the company is operating. Is it like they're working everything big, like big upfront design, big upfront analysis, big release, big push, or they're working a small, like a small releases, a small stories, a small teams, everything is small. So for example, I went to an organization and they were like uh, 7 or 8 teams, and each team size was like 15 to 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
and it varied, and I was like, why it's set up like that? So we realized like they just put all the database developers in one team, all UI developers in one team. So they had, the first thing I saw, like, it's big in itself. So how are you going to go and make it small? And that's the right conversation that you start, is like making your releases a small, your teams are smaller. Obviously there's a extent to which you can go. If the stories are big, making that a smaller. If you're doing a release which is happening every 6 months, how you can do in 3 months, how you can do in a month, how can you do in 15 days? So make that a smaller. So that's a small is very important part. The third is uh, create a culture of pull. You see, with the organization is a push. The manager is coming and telling, go do this. There's no harm in it. Things will still get done, but you won't become agile. The reason you won't become agile is each and every developer, each and every individual has superpowers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody has got that immense strength and power. If you are not able to tap into those powers, if you cannot take the best out of it, you're not agile. What you're doing is you're working with the least amount of energy of those people. When you're
Yeah.
working with the least amount, you will get the least, right? So
Yeah.
agility is about harnessing those hidden powers. And that is only possible if you create that culture of pull, where you give power to the people. You let them give solutions. Just tell them the problem and they'll come out with some wonderful solutions. So do you see, if you go to the organization, see if that is there or not. And then you have to work on making sure that the culture of pull is created. And the fourth thing, which I call it transparency or data. This is super important. Transparency is like a iceberg, something that we know, something we do not know, something that is hidden we know, something that is hidden we do not know. And the entire organization works of one quadrant, something that we know, and 3/4 of the information is hidden. When you have 3/4 of the information is hidden, how can you become agile? How can you be successful? So it
Yeah.
means that you have to go and expose all the data, and you have to work in an absolutely transparent way so that you always interact with the data. And when I talk about the data, it goes back to the story of the customer. I give an example. I was working for uh, one of those big banking company, and Capital One. And one day a VP asked me, like, hey, we are working on a 2-year project, and you guys have given an estimate a 2-year project, and how we are going to be successful, because we want something faster. So I say, what do you mean by faster? 1 year, 11 months? She said, no, 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 no. I want real fast. So the next question I asked is like, okay, so what do you want in the first month? She says, like, first month? I don't know. So I asked that question 2 or 3 times in a different way. She could not answer. She didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Then she asked me to work with a director and then find out, like, what can we do? What can we deliver every month? When we started putting everything together, we realized there are only 5 important things. If we deliver, the project will realize 80% of its value.
Wow.
And after that, we went to the team and start saying like, can you deliver this? And after 5 months, we achieved 80% of the value. And
Awesome.
something that has failed 3 years back, now they achieve. So what happened here? We exposed a lot of data, right? All the hidden things. What is happening? What is most important? What is the key? What customer wants? So that's what I'm saying, this data. So keep in mind 4 things. If you can analyze the entire problem of the organization, and there could be more angles, like I said, but at least these 4 minimum, whether the organization is customer centric, means it's working with the customer. It's going and addressing the need of the customer. Second is it working as small or not working as small? Everything is big. The third, where there is only a push, or there is a culture of pull. If there is no culture of pull, the fourth is data. How much transparent, how much data they're working with? Are they asking about the data points? Once you have those 4, then you have a pretty good understanding like where the problem is going to be. And I guarantee you're going to go and find lots of problem in those 4 areas. Yeah.
Absolutely. So actually, very tightly said on the different four items. I was thinking about like you might be in a situation before as well when you started your journey as a coach. Uh, Many times before, as you go to the new organization, you need to build a trust actually,
Yes.
because it looks like yet another person has come and somebody is asking so these questions. And basically what I've seen is that people are resistant to trust that person. uh, and one of the tendency which we basically see is also in our, I mean, in many coaches, is that uh, it also become repulsive, like oh, I mean, these people are very repulsive, and they are not even implementing the basic stuff and all that stuff. So the problem is that I think the simple question I am asking is like, what all it takes to build the trust as you go to the new
Yes,
organization.
exactly. A very good question. Very good question. And this, again, I have learned through my experiences what it takes to build a trust. And what is this trust? So when you go to an organization, I've seen a lot of coaches, the first thing they think is they have to go and immediately find the problems and go and tell them like, hey, you guys have this problem. And then you have some ready-made solutions, just go and implement it. Never works like that. Like I said, every organization has its own personality. They have their own culture. In order to build trust, the most important thing is you have to go and convince them that you go and think well of them, right? Good. So for that, it's very important that you establish a relationship with the people there. In order to build it, when you're going to go and establish a relationship, in order to build that relationship, it's very important that you go and recognize some of their strengths.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
when you go to a team, try to find out their strengths first and
Mhm.
see what are the good things in them.
Mhm.
So this is again one of the fundamental principles in agility: respect.
Yeah,
You have to give them respect, right?
absolutely.
Respect them for whatever they have. They may not be the best developer, they may not be the best of the managers, the best of whatever it is, but they have some strengths, right? Everybody has a strength.
Yeah.
If you recognize that strength, then the trust will start building up. So the very important thing is respect people for whatever strength they have. Do not disrespect. Do not make them feel that whatever they're doing is wrong.
Mhm.
You have to make them feel that whatever they're doing is good, they know their stuff, and they need to improve on that, right?
Yeah.
So in order to build trust, first respect them. So once you start giving respect, you will get the respect back. So I've seen like an excellent developers, and when they go to the team, and not just developers, coaches and all,
Yes.
when they go to the team and they go and tell other developers like, hey, whatever you're doing is wrong,
Mhm.
that person everybody knows may not be close to this developer, but say like, no, I have been working in this industry for 18 years. Why should I listen to you, right?
Yeah.
That's a very simple answer. It's because
Yes.
there's a lack of trust.
Yeah.
So you have to recognize. You have to respect the people, the organization, and their culture, whatever they have.
Mhm.
And once you recognize, once you respect that, then you will win the trust. Once you win the trust, then whatever simple thing you say, they'll be open to listening. And that will create that culture of pull. When people will start pulling from you, you don't have to push. So that's the beauty, and that's how you build it.
I think one of another important thing I just wanted to highlight here is that, and you might have also recognized that uh, the way the the idea of the whole idea of the emotional intelligence and connecting to the people, making them comfortable, uh, is very important, because one way maybe like you're sitting on your seat, and basically where you go there when there is a requirement of events or ceremonies or whatever.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
another is you are consciously building the relations with those people,
Yeah,
because it is not only that you go there just when there is a problem, or when you need to have a conversation around coaching and technical stuff.
yeah,
It has to be more human, where when
exactly.
you start
Mhm, mhm,
trusting you
exactly.
actually.
So I'll give you one data. In US, 90% of the doctors who are sued for the malpractices, means something they go wrong, something they do wrong, is not because of their doing something wrong, is because how they approach that, means they do not have what they call bedside manners.
Hmm.
If a doctor does not have bedside manners, there is 90% likelihood that they're going to be sued more than those doctors who has bedside manners. So
Absolutely.
what is bedside manners is like, how do you interact with your patients? How do you interact with your the people around you? And the people with an excellent doctors with an excellent bedside manners, they are much less likely to be sued.
Hmm.
So why it's so important to have that bedside manners even in the coaching? So like I said, it's very important that you go and develop that trust, and those softer skills, the softer skills and emotion intelligence, all those things become super important in connecting with that person, because Agile is a socio-technical phenomenon. It's
Hmm.
not purely technology. There is
Absolutely.
a huge element of social. So right in the beginning, we're talking about the four things that defined the modern revolution, the fourth revolution, you can say industrial revolution. And one of the strands is that social, cloud, social, mobile, big data. This social, and that social in the industry is called Agile. That's what the Agile is, making people social, coming together and solving the problem. People are not going to go and sit in the queue and solve the problem alone. They have to interact, and they have to interact as a team. So when you're working as a team, it's very important that you understand each other's need, you respect them, you make them feel comfortable, and you work as one team, like a family. And just like in a family, the things will happen, but ultimately family has to stay together, and it's very important to care for them, right? And that's where your social skills, you have to understand every person's strength, weaknesses, and you have to interact as a family. Once you interact as a family, as one unit, working towards a goal, which is your customer, the chances of your success is much higher than the chances of success as working individuals. So it's not cut and dried. It's like a transformational thing. It's not a transactional thing where you go and implement some ideas and it will happen. You have to change the behavior. And when I'm talking of the behaviors, just think about these behaviors. It's the movements towards the left, going towards the left, shift left.
Yeah.
Now, shift left means start writing your test before. Think about the customer, think about the outcome before you before you write your code, right? Before you have your solution. So this is the outcome I want to achieve. Think about like, what is the meaning I'm going to provide in this matrix before you create a matrix, right? So all these take you walking backward from the customer. So when you walk backward from the customer, when you try to become more customer centric, it it's basically it's a reverse thinking. So when you want to revert somebody's way of thinking, is very important that you really understand the way they want to think, you respect their thinking, you respect their traditional experience, and then gradually You go and convince them like how you're going to go and benefit your customer more if you reverse your thinking, right? The way you work. Because in theory, it looks very easy. When you actually go and start working,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's super difficult. Yeah.
So actually, so we covered certain points over here about what all it becomes, what all it takes to become a coach, and then what all problems a coach may be facing while joining. Actually, so then
Hmm.
let's move towards the point which is about let's say I am going as a coach in some organizations. Um, so, what should be my first step? Is it like, I mean, definitely around trust building, all that stuff is basically a kind of parallel exercise which will happen. But should I basically focusing on identifying what are the issues the organizations are struggling with, or what should I do?
Yeah, I mean, that's also a very critical point. I remember one of the organizations I joined, and the very next day, I had a conversation with an Agile coach. I was trying to understand the landscape, like any coach will like to do. Like the moment you enter an organization, you would like to understand the landscape. You'll understand. You'll try to get a feel of the culture, the people around there, their practices, where they are with their practices. A lot of those things. So uh, I talked to a coach who was already there and try to understand how's the landscape, what is there. You need to strike some conversation with that. So after having a good discussion, next day I saw my boss came and said like, hey, now tell us what changes we want to make.
Mm.
Very the second day of the organization. So I said like, well, I can suggest 10,000 things that you can change, but it's not going to go and work like that.
Yeah.
The first thing which I'm trying to understand here is what are the things that works excellently well here? What are the things that really, really works?
Very nice.
Because if something is working, then there's some strength. Something good is happening somewhere, right? That's why it's working.
Mm.
And first you have to figure it out, what is working, and then you have to figure it out how you can go and start making them stronger. So play by their strength, do not play by their weaknesses.
That is very important point. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? Sorry.
So this is very important to play by their strength. The
Yeah.
second thing that you do is, again, now once you see their strengths, and once you start respecting them for whatever they have, right, then you will start building trust. Once you start building your trust, then comes start finding out like what is that one area where you can do minimum investment and get the maximum return. So this I'm a big fan of. Like minimum, one of my favorite agile principles is simplicity, the art of maximizing work not done. Means like you need to do at the minimum effort and you have to try get the maximum, right?
Yeah.
Maximize work not done, not maximize not doing the work, not done.
Yeah.
So what I mean to say is like similarly when you go to the coaching, make sure that you identify an area where you can make the maximum impact. You can solve the problem, right?
Mhm.
Once you go and help them become successful, even in that small area, small wins, it'll create a huge amount of trust, and that will pave the path for your bigger changes. So do not straight go and start implementing big changes the day one. Understand the landscape, understand their strengths, find their strengths, play by their strengths first, and then go and find out an area where you can make an impact with a very small amount of change. Once that's successful, they are successful. That will kind of so the way I put it is like the role of a coach is to create a small ripple, but if a good a good atmosphere is created, that one ripple will turn into a tsunami, and then there'll be a huge amount of changes. You don't have to create a tsunami there. The organization is going to go and create a tsunami for you if you're able to establish good relationship and you are able to create that small ripple.
Absolutely. I think you made. I think one of the thing which was a kind of takeaway even for me as well is that um, identifying the strengths first actually, and focusing on them before you just go out there to say that these are the problems, and then they will come back to bite you anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so when, I mean, I think we identified, uh, we looked at, like, we should look at the strengths, and then we should see what kind of uh, problems maybe, or kind of solutions maybe the organizations may be looking for. So in terms of identifying the problems, how should one go for the evaluating the organization?
Evaluate the organization. Okay. So there are many tools to evaluate the organization, but one of the things which I look for and which I use a lot personally, I again give an example. Uh, there was an organization and it was newly created. Actually, it was a group that was created within the organization. And their biggest problem was they did not know. They did not know what to do. Means like they started developing somewhere something, they hired a bunch of people, and some people in the operations, some people in the product, some people in the development, and the people with variety of experiences, variety of different background, they came and they started developing software. And they realize is like they have some timelines they have to hit, they have to achieve something. So this is one of the key areas where a lot of those falter, right? They always try to go and see the that one particular example where the blind man trying to figure it out an elephant,
Mm.
and somebody says different thing about that. No, so
Yeah.
it's very important to see that end-to-end picture.
Yes.
If you do not see end-to-end picture, if you cannot see into your eye of customer through your software, then basically your journey has not even begun.
Yeah.
So the key thing is you try to find out that one small, people call it value chain, people call it the customer journey, you can call it anywhere, but that one end-to-end chain, that you have to look. So what is that simplest way that I can go and interact with my customer directly through my software? The moment you figure it out and you reach your customer, so that's the first thing I did with that particular team. So I call everybody from that team, their product owner, their developers, their executives, their operations, everybody. We put together in one room like 50 or 60 people,
Mm-hmm.
and then I divided them into like 3 or 4 groups,
Okay.
probably 4 groups.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the task I gave them. Like now you have to go and create the entire company. Means like you have to reach your customer fast.
Mm-hmm.
How would you reach them? What is your value chain? How you want to go and create that journey?
Mm-hmm.
And just do everything right, everything. So I put them in 4 rooms and they all created their own journey right from the scratch. Like we need to do this, and all the way until they meet their customer.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took like around 1.5 hours to 2 hours to create that kind of a journey. Then they started presenting their journeys. The most interesting thing about their journey is all fours presented totally different way of reaching the customer,
Wow. Wow.
100% different.
Wow.
There's absolutely hardly anything in common. And then people surprised, like they have been working for last 6 months without even knowing like how they want to reach the customer, right?
Yeah.
Now they're like, oh, this is a big eye opener. So they got together and they merged that all the 4 journeys into one journey. They took the entire day next day. And now they say like, now we have a plan. Now we know what we need to do to reach our customer. So that is the most important thing, is the first thing that you need to find out when you're in that kind of situation is like, don't get lost in the melee. Rather, figure it out like what is the fastest and the shortest way to reach your customer first. And why it's important is because that's where we'll start getting data, and that data will become your driver to drive more changes. And that will make your emergent architecture end to end. And
So
that's
do
how you're going to go on.
so do you also, I mean, while defining the status quo and where do you want to go, did you also ask them to put the data as well, like how much time, for example, this takes right now, and so kind of having some kind of value stream mapping or something like that?
Yes, so that's exactly what I was talking about. This is the value stream mapping, and
Mhm.
the whole idea behind this value stream is like how you can connect all those small values so that you can create an end-to-end journey. And that end-to-end journey, the idea is the entire philosophy of this agility is based on reaching your customer first. And
Mhm.
why customer first? There is a fundamental reason behind that. We have moved on because of all those technological changes and the changes that is happening in society and economy and business. We have moved on from project to product, or what you call the brand equity, to the customer equity.
Yeah,
So means the product which used to be important is no longer that important. What is
absolutely.
important is your customer,
Yeah,
because customer has a lot of choices. If a customer wants to use a Bing or Google or Yahoo or any other search engine, they can invest billions. It's a click away from them, right?
absolutely.
So customer has got a lot of choices. So what is customer equity is the lifetime value of the customer. So more you can keep your customer closer to you, the chances of your success is going to be much more than those who are creating an awesome product without any customer, right?
Absolutely.
So it's very important that you go and reach your customer, get their data, and keep them for the lifetime, means through a variety of different ways.
Mhm.
And that's the game a lot of those big companies are trying to play. Is especially you go and see Amazon, they say like they're the most customer obsessed company in the world. Basically that's what they're saying,
Yeah,
that how can I keep my customer with me all the time, because I know my customer has a lot of distraction, a lot of choices. So in agility, basically what we do is try to go and reach the customer, understand their interest, understand what they actually need, and deliver them iteratively so that they stay closer to us as long as we can serve them, right? And that's the key thing. And in order to reach the customer, you have to have that value chain, the customer journey, the journey that will take you to the customer, right?
and
And
actually, you rightly also mentioned like one is being customer focused, and at the
yeah,
same time reaching to the customer faster as well. I mean, it's not like you just know about it that you need to be with the customer, but you're not really reaching there.
yes,
That doesn't really also make any sense. So
exactly.
yeah. So
and
actually,
and that
yeah. Sorry,
is, so
please go.
that's actually the word that you use, the speed. This in this era of hyper connectivity, and with all those, like I say, uh, it's kind of a fourth industrial revolution where the technology is changing so fast. Things are getting much simpler, at the same time more complex. And the way the things are changing, the one key buzzword that you'll hear all the time is speed. So
Mhm.
previous era, it was like if you're a big company, if you're like a GM or a GE or any other big company, you're going to go and buy those smaller companies. So big eats the small, right? That was the phrase earlier.
Yeah.
In this era, it's very different. It is the fast eats the slow. If you're
Yeah,
fast, you're going to go and eat the slow companies. So it's very important to become fast. So what does speed mean? The speed means how fast you can reach your customer and meet their need. That
absolutely.
is. Mhm.
So, I mean, for this conversation, I think we have reached to a time actually which we thought about. What I'm thinking is that we will take some questions and then we will continue this journey in the next
Absolutely.
episode.
Absolutely. I'll love to. In the future interactions, I'll talk about how I improve the quality, how I changed the culture in the organization. So I'll give you some real examples of my experiences. Like I said, all my experiences have been built step by step, one at a time, and that's how I learn.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so actually, I just wanted to, I mean, start from the beginning because people, I mean, want to understand what is the role of the coaching, how does a coach starts working in a company, what kind of challenges he faces, and then we can go into the challenges one by one.
yes,
So
sure.
that's where I wanted to start with actually in our initial conversation, and then as you rightly mentioned, we will take up all those nuances as we move further. So I'm taking some of the questions which have been part of our Slido questionnaire. Uh, so first question is, what are the top three or maybe more skills that you would encourage agile coaches to have?
Yeah. So the first thing that again, it's a great question. Uh, you will see a lot of values, a lot of those strengths, and the first thing which I personally prefer and I like is your ability to learn. You should be a learner, and you should not be a person that knows everything, because
Yes.
nobody can know everything,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So if you have the ability to learn, so there are two words: know it all and learn it all. You should not be know-it-all person. Even if you know everything,
Yeah.
you should not be a know-it-all person. Because like I said, once you enter an organization, it's very important to study the organization, study the culture, study the people. And that's only possible if we have that spirit of learning,
Mhm.
right? So that is the most important. And that learning should continue throughout, number one.
Mhm.
Number two is once you become a learner, then it becomes a lot easier for you to go and digest and come out with the solutions, build some good relationships and all. Yeah. The second most important thing, that is being situationally aware, right? So what I mean by situationally aware is you should not be just thinking in a what you call a myopic view. Is like, hey, I'm going, my job is only going and doing and implementing it in a place, in a team. That never flies.
Mhm.
You have to understand the landscape. You have to be connected with the surroundings. Even in the technology, you have to be connected with like how the world is doing, how
Yeah.
other teams are doing,
Yeah.
how the other people, how my colleagues in the industry, how they are being successful. So look around everything. So if you are just working in a very narrow space and you think like this is the only way we are going to go and make it successful, then even though you're successful, but actually you're not really that successful because you are not connected to the world. So this is the second most important point. Like first, be a learner. Second, have the situational awareness. And third is, like I said, learn to create that learn to create that culture of pull. This is important. And why I'm highlighting this over any other point is a lot of coaches that have the habit of just go and implement something.
Mhm.
Once you start going and implementing something, keep in mind it also, when you try, it's kind of a push. When you push, it'll come with some kind of a pushback.
Yeah.
So instead of going and telling them and go and do it, you try to create that a culture around you, an environment around you where people are incentivized to pull from you, right? So
Mhm.
they were really interested that you're actually a problem solver. You're not coming to go and implement an idea or a framework or something. They have problems and you go there as a problem solver.
Mhm.
So try to go there as somebody who is a buddy who is going to go and help them, and you're going to go and solve their problems, right? So these three things you have to keep in mind.
Sorry. Uh, yeah. So Ashok, did you wanted to continue, or I
No,
should?
that's good. Good. The three
Okay.
things. If you want me to repeat, I can repeat. The three things that you need to do is to, the first, be a learner, learn it. The second, be situationally aware, and the third, the most important characteristic that you need to have is, you be a problem solver. Don't be an implementer, or don't push your ideas. You solve their problems, identify their problem, and ease their pain. So you should be the person who should be seen as this person is going to go and help us solve our problems, right? And make us successful, and not as somebody who's just going to go and impose the ideas. Yeah, the three
Sure.
very important characteristics.
Yeah. So another one is, in your view, how important are the technical skills for an agile coach?
Yeah, another great question. So when you talk about the technical, everything is technical. Even agile itself has become very technical, right? And understanding those nuances is very, very important. So when you talk about the technical, there are lots of those nuances that you have to understand. And like I said, if you're thinking, there's something called imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That means the people think if they go and start talking about something, people will say like you're faking, and you're a fraud, you're not the right person. So don't worry about it. The key thing is you have to understand is how you're going to go and understand the whole landscape, especially if you're coaching in the software development industry. You have to understand how the software development works, how a story is written. So I'm repeating the same thing which I said earlier, the how the story is, how you think about a story, how you think about a vision, how can you use a variety of different tools to create that vision, how that is transitioned through the backlog grooming, through any other means to the development team. And then how you ensure quality. What are the things that you need to go and do the quality? All the different kind of testing that you do, all the different ways that you write the software, you know. And then finally, how you're going to go and interact with the customer. In this entire journey, there are lots of skills and there are a lot of different specialities that is kind of hidden. An agile coach should not know all, but at least they should be good at some of those things so that they can connect the dots and they can help in some areas. If you're good at everything, then you're a unicorn, which you cannot be, right? So the good thing is you need technical skills in the sense is like in the entire software development, you have to understand that how it works. And then you need to identify some areas where you're really good at so that you can inspire people and then go and help, you know, so you choose and then start building your strength one by one. So technical does not mean you have to be a coder. If you're a coder, is fine, but the technical in the sense like you have to really understand the technicalities of the software development and then make your strengths there, and so that you can make some definitive changes to build the trust.
One of the things basically I see in this context is that uh, somehow a scrum becomes a flaccid scrum actually, where uh, I mean it's all about focused around the events and roles and responsibilities. But as far as the real work is concerned, actually technical work that goes out of the preview of the coaches actually. uh, and so and that's where the actual problem may be really lying. So for example, the whole mess may be lying over there.
Yes.
so
Mhm.
so I mean what I've seen is that even though you may not be a good amount, I mean a very technical person, but I mean at the same time thinking around it like that, only the process part is sufficient for being a coach is also not sufficient, because you need to understand how your how I mean in case you want to make your journey shorter, I mean from the earlier from the status quo, then what all it involves in general, for example, and
Mhm.
then you
Mhm.
try to understand where the problems are lying instead of just focus towards process and frameworks.
Exactly, exactly. You said very rightly. So you will see in a lot of organizations, you'll see like they hire a scrum master, he goes in the first day and maybe they don't have the scrum framework, they go and implement it. And after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, suddenly you see is like, okay, now my job is done. There is nothing else to
Yeah.
do, right? That's how you feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So actually that is not true. Like I said, that's, you have not even begun your work. That's the reality. And a lot of people I've seen is like they go in too much of technical details and they start working as a developer and it's starting, I mean, there is no harm in it. You can do it. You can be the part of the team. I have become a part of team. I help a lot with the testing. But again, that's a very myopic view. The whole idea is you have to go and take a broad view of the entire landscape, and then you should have the ability to come down and find those nuances, each and every nuances, and start solving them. For example, if there is no shift left culture in the organization, means you're not writing your test first. You have to really understand that how you can go and affect that change so that, and just going and telling them go do TDD is not going to fly. People say like, I don't like it,
Mhm.
you know. So you have to create that culture where they really understand that why you're doing it.
Mhm.
Why ATDD? Writing ATDD is important. In order to ATDD, why it's important to focus on customer. So you have to keep moving towards your left. Then you'll get an understand. And then if there is no customer, why you're not working with the customer, how can you reach the customer, how can you help write a smaller stories, how can you help split the stories, how can you connect the dots, what are the things that you need to focus on, how can you incorporate data into all those things. So if you go and start looking from all those angles, you'll find like that tons and thousand things are missing, and that's why you can be super effective and you can solve their problem one by one, right? And so it's not about like just implementing the framework and the people start coding and then you get out and say like my job is done. No, that's not even the beginning. That's just like scratching the surface, the real problems. And then you have to understand those interactions, like interactions among the people. Is it really the people are showing their initiative, they are being incentivized to go and come out with new ideas? Is there is a culture of pull or a push? What can you do? How can you educate your leaders so that there is not too much of a push, or even within the team, you know? So you have to look from all the angles. You have to be completely situationally aware and start making a difference one by one, so that ultimately you write a software that is the best. I give an example. In one of the companies I went, everything was working fine. Their scrum was fine. I mean, the way they're running scrum ceremonies were going very nicely. And at the first sight, you will see there is no problem, right? The customer is getting the software, you're delivering the software, your ceremony is running the fine. So I said, like, there is something wrong here. And the people will say, and again, this is one of my the early ventures where I was still learning how to do it.
Yeah.
So what I realized in that situation is, the business was creating all the solutions and they're handing off to the development team, and the development team was very nicely and giving whatever solutions they will turn into the product, and customers getting whatever the product that was happening, what that was meant for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I asked is like, how do you know that your customer really likes it?
Mm-hmm.
Then everybody was silent. Like, well, we never thought about it, right? So your everything could be flowing very smoothly, but you're not doing the right thing. And the right thing is making sure that your customer gets what exactly they want, right?
Good.
So these kind of things, when you can see like everything is working fine, if you are not customer centric, if you are not changing, if you are not incorporating design thinking into your approach to meet the customer need better and faster, that's where role comes. So that's why I say like it's a very deep and huge world that you can make so much of a difference through the coaching. But just don't just confine yourself to implementing a framework. Solve the real problems, and the real problems are good.
So actually, if I mean, combine whatever we have discussed so far, one of the thing which is looks like important is that uh, it is not only the technical skills, but anything which is required to get you the entire view of the landscape
Exactly.
will be
Mhm.
useful, because
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
technical may be one part of it, but then there are other parts as well.
Exactly. It's not just the technical skill. Like I said, Agile is a socio-technical phenomenon. So it's
Mhm.
not just if you understand the technology, you can win. It's not just you have just the soft skills, you can win. It's a combination. It's
Mhm.
your ability to go and see the end-to-end, see those, see through those kind of, the jumbled pictures, and you can see like, okay, this is my path, the shortest path to the customer. And it's your ability to go and influence and convince why this is the best way that you can go and maximize the benefits, or the way we are working, how we can go and get the maximum results. So the the agile coaching is not only about one thing, it's a combination of things. Your technical skills, where you understand the software development very well. And again, do not confuse my technical skill with just being a coder. It's about understanding the whole gamut of software development,
Yeah.
understanding your landscape. You should be very good at it. And then of course the soft skills that comes when you go and translate them. So when you have those complete enchilada, that is definitely going to go. And of course for that you have to be a learner, keep learning all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep
So,
learning. I give an example, when you talk about the learning, of my son. He was baking a cake, and so he baked a cake. It looked like a cake. It looks pretty nice. And I was about to jump on and eat it. And he said like, "Hey dad, stop, don't eat it." I said, "What?" "Well, I've not put sugar in this." So my mistake, my bad. So don't eat it. So I said, like, and then why you're keeping it? Why didn't you throw it? No, 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 no. Keep it. It reminds me of my failure. So that next time I'm not going to repeat it. Right. So until he perfected it, he was keeping there. So don't be afraid of your failures. Right. Keep them, because that will pave the path for your success. So that's very important.
Yep, yep, yep. So I'll just take another one. This is about what are the things, patterns, criteria that you would look to call agile coach as successful in his or her role.
What are the patterns? And say it again. What are the
I
patterns?
mean, the point is like, what are the things, patterns, or criteria that you would look to call agile coach as a successful in his role?
Okay. So
How do you define the coach is successful in his role?
yeah. The most important thing which I have seen, and in my experience and other people's experiences, when some coaches go, you will see the whole organization is suddenly kind of they get an energy. You will see. I give an example. Uh, I went to Microsoft in one of my assignments, and they were running this is a good example, because you will see that how things change and how you can see success of a coach.
Mhm.
So when I went there, they were working on a huge project, and their first phase of the project was already delayed by 3 months,
Okay.
and the second phase of the project was 1.5 times bigger than the first phase, and they got me almost close to the beginning of the second phase.
Mhm.
And when I entered the room, they were already like late into the first phase, and they were trying to finish it off. And so when I entered, that executive, he came and said like, "Hey, Ashok, I don't know A of Agile, but I know the Agile coaches do some wonders, so do some magic here." So like I say, a lot of people think Agile coaches are magician, right? They're not magician. They are like a normal people.
Yeah.
And your success is not coming from doing the magic, because you're not a magician. Your
Mhm.
success is coming from creating that ripple that, if organization catches, that'll make you successful, right? So how to create that ripple is up to you and your experience and your study, how well you study the things. And once you go and create it. So I give an example what I did here. So when I saw all those things, so this gentleman, this executive, he said like, "I'll give you a team, and even if you fail in that team, we can pull off the rest." I said like, "Well, you're not managed to pull off even the first phase. How are you going to pull off the second?" But but anyway, I took that team, and the first thing, when I went and asked, and looked like everything is about, it was a Fed mandated project, means you have to go and meet that deadline, otherwise you're going to be fined. That kind of a serious thing. So I took that one particular team which is given and asked them, is like, do they like Agile? They say like, yes. I was like, have they done Agile? They said, yes, they would love to do Agile. So like how they see agility. So anyway, we had a lot of interactions. And right after those interactions, the first thing I asked for is like, what is your timeline? How much time you have been given? 6 months. I'm like, can you do everything in a month? And they were like, wow, what are you talking about? We are not even able to do in 6 months. You're going to go and ask. No, no, no. My question is, can you finish everything that you have been given in for 6 months in a month? They're the estimates that you have given. Then after my insistence, the first they get mad, but they say like, give us 2 or 3 days. So they came back after 3 days and they say like, uh, not 1 month, but we can do everything in 2 months. So anyway, that was a huge win. From 6 months, they came down to 2 months.
Mhm.
And I said like, well, you're not getting my point. I said 1 month, right? And they were again surprised, like why I'm insisting on the month. So basically what I was saying is like, what is that minimum viable product that is absolutely required, that you can go and deliver in a month, and the rest you can go and keep iterating later on, so that at least I can make my customer running, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, they finally understood, and they delivered all the core elements, probably in 3 sprints. And then in next 3 sprints, in 6 sprints, which was like 2 week sprints, they delivered literally everything. And interestingly, once they created that, it inspired other teams. Now the whole organization, there were like 125 developers. Everybody has started following that path, and now it became more like a competition. Like how can they go and start reaching customer faster, with the shortest. So they asked me to go and lead the affinity estimation and the entire customer journeys for each team. And long story short, finally everything was done in like 4.5 to 5 months. It's done. And instead of 8, so the previous one, which was uh, smaller, it took
Mhm.
3 months longer, and this took much more. Sorry, much less, like
Yeah.
in 5 months instead of 8 months. So a
Yeah.
lot of executives came and asked me, like, what did you do that? I said, like, the same executive, same place, same requirements, same place, same people. What was the change? What did you do? I said, like, very simple. I just show them like how to work with the customer. I gave them the journey. So if you can catch that ripple, you can create that ripple, and the organization catches that ripple, and then it becomes like I said, it's a very emergent kind of thing. There is no perfect solution. Like, you just go do this and you're going to go and get this result. So you have to really understand the psyche and find out the area where you can create a ripple. And if the organization catches that ripple, and I'm using the word if, is because you may have to experiment. It's not there's going to be one solution fits all, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you have to go and create that.
So I'm just taking one last question for this one. So this is what should be the alternative approaches we can take, or approach we need to take for the conflict in the team?
Okay. So whenever there is a conflict in the team, it can be good or bad, right? uh, don't think the conflict is bad all the time.
Yeah.
The conflict could be, I've seen the conflict where the one developer says like, this is the best way to develop, we need to go and experiment, and other developer is like hardcore. One developer's or it could be any kind of a conflict.
Mhm.
The reason, the key reason behind the conflict is the people are very myopic in their view in one side.
Yeah.
So there are two kinds of things. One is they always try to go and see the local picture, not the global picture,
Mhm.
right? So when they see everything into a global picture, a lot of time it solves their problem. So as a coach, what I do is I never go and try to go and solve their problems and force. So for example, if somebody says like, hey, I don't want to work as a team, if you go and impose it, like, no, you need to work as a team because these are the great values, you're basically doing a disservice. You're not going to go and convince them, right?
Yeah.
So instead, if you really want to promote that idea of, so find out like how to make that, in this example, how to demonstrate like other people who are doing this software developments as a group collaboratively, they're kind of creating a high quality product, and let that person be convinced. And if that person is not convinced like this is the best, and then you go and show the picture is like how this fits overall into the organization goal. So you have to create that culture around that person, so that person is incentivized to buy your idea. The moment you start imposing it, that person is going to go and create a pushback. So in the conflict, what happens, the mostly the conflict happens because somebody is pushing, somebody is pushing the wrong thing, is not creating that culture of pull. And the more you push, there will be conflict. So look into the root cause, look into the global picture, look into the overall scheme of the things, and then identify like what could have been the reason of the conflict, and how you can address by creating a right atmosphere around that.
And also
And
like how that person can be incentivized in
yeah,
doing that thing actually.
to think differently, exactly. Because there's a very good example. uh, I was talking about working together collaboratively, and there was one developer who was very good, and he opposed not because he didn't like to work collaboratively. He opposed because he thought like all his great ideas will get assimilated and he won't get promotion.
Mhm.
Because he will think like, okay, the team is doing, I'm not doing,
Yeah.
right? So when I understood that, then I had to go and convince him like, it's not about that, it's about the leadership. With his role, with his knowledge, he can be a much better leader, a lot easier working in a group versus doing the great coding himself, right?
Yes,
Because he
absolutely.
won't just, yeah, he won't just be doing a great coding, but he can also become a great mentor, right?
And as he, shape the path of the team towards meeting the mission that they are looking for, I mean, there will be much better cause for him to get promoted, isn't it? In
Oh,
that.
exactly. And keep in mind, there is one role that is missing in all the companies. In all the companies, I can tell with confidence, that is leadership role.
Mhm.
There are very few leaders.
Yeah, 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 absolutely,
So you
absolutely.
can always be a leader. The
Yep,
sky is limit. Yeah.
yep, yep, yep. So thank you so much, Ashok, for. I mean, this was a very wonderful conversation, and we started with a very good note. And I'm thinking to. I mean, I think we'll be continuing this conversation further in with different challenges or different nuances which we just discussed together today.
Absolutely, it's pleasure. And I saw like there are a lot of people, the 50 plus people who have been here and listening and adhere to the whole session. And I really like that. And I'm pretty sure they're going to go on and learn something, and they're going to go and try something new, and they're going to experiment and become successful in their own path, right?
Yeah,
And I hope,
absolutely.
and at any time you need any help, any suggestions, any kind of things, feel free to reach me. And I'm there in the LinkedIn. So get connected to me in the LinkedIn, and you can ask questions. I'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to help you solve your problem as much as possible.
Yeah. So what I will do, Ashok, is that there are a list of the questions which people have mentioned on the Slido. So we could answer, I mean, four of them, but there are a lot of other
Absolutely.
questions. So so that will help us prepare the next conversation we are going to have.
Absolutely. Love to do. And that's the best way. This is called creating a culture of pull,
Yeah.
right? That we are going to answer based on what people need, not what we want, right? Exactly. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
And have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dylan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashok and Sri.
Uh-huh.
Thanks.